This is visual interpreter Rebecca. As we wait for the live feed from the whitehouse.gov, currently on the screen, it shows a graphic of the White House building itself. The word live, Friday, June 14th, 2024. Next event starts at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Upcoming events. 1:30 p.m. Eastern, Vice President Harris delivers remarks on her nationwide economic opportunity tour. Vice President Harris continues her nationwide economic opportunity tour with a moderated conversation at the 100 Black Men of America Incorporated 38th Annual Conference, Atlanta, Georgia. The live event has not begun. This is a white screen with dark blue and light blue text.
Rebecca, if you want to go ahead and click that link for the vice president, we should be taken to the live feed.
I'm talking to presidents and all of that, so I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank y'all for inviting me. I'm an honorary member of the 100, but I'm a dedicated Black man.
This is Steve
I'm about
Harvey.
the uplift and edification of Black people. Everything I do is for us. So in spite of what you may hear, that's the real truth about who I really am. So it's a great honor for me to be here. Thank you all for having me. I hope I do this right. They told me there was some kids in here, and I had to.
He's wearing a blue suit. He has glasses. He's holding a microphone in his hand.
I'm not responsible for the raising of your children.
Right hand microphone, left hand
all
notes.
my children with cussing. It has been a great benefit. If you don't cuss at your children, that's yours. I'm just here from my ranch. I drove in from my ranch this morning. I got 250 boys down at the ranch that my wife and I acquired. Our boys' mentoring camp is happening this week, Father's Day. They will graduate on Father's Day, so we done broke up 15 fights. No, seriously, 2 boys made a shank. The juvenile system gave me 2 boys. We removed the ankle bracelets and sent them to the camp because the camp is so effective. He got his ankle bracelet off and his ass ran. And so.
He's standing center stage. The stage is blue and dark.
I got to go back and put his bracelet on because he don't want to stay. So I'm here, so thank you all for having me. You want me to sit down, bro?
There's a soft armchair behind him. It is cream colored and a small white table with a glass of water.
Yeah, thank y'all.
This man is standing at a white lectern with 2 microphones. He's wearing a black suit and a gold tie, a white shirt. He has glasses.
Next introduction gives me very special pleasure. I was fortunate to meet Madam Vice President during her initial stop on her economic opportunity tour. As we talked, I could see that she was genuinely concerned about economic opportunity for all. I shared how the 100 organization and I, as an individual citizen, have deep concerns regarding economic opportunity. The work Vice President Kamala Harris has delivered in this area carries a focus that is critical to my community, to my family, and to me, and to all of us here today. Improving the economic wealth gap that exists in our country is absolutely essential. And the Biden-Harris administration has made historic progress. Her focus on creating opportunities for the nation as a whole, and for African Americans in particular, resonated with me. I've seen her stand up and work to demystify how to do business with the government. This work creates a government that is not just for some, but for all. Her integrity and unwavering commitment, her approach and ability to view through an equitable lens, and her absolute effectiveness are things I greatly admire. As a nation, we're all benefiting from this, whether we know it or not. Her commitment to creating opportunities has led to change for people in general, and it has delivered real economic impact in cities across the country, including Detroit, Milwaukee, and right here in Atlanta, and in all those cities, the 100 has shown up. And now it is my honor to introduce the first woman to be elected Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. Let's give her a round of applause.
He is clapping for Kamala Harris. A close-up on the speaker still, showing the larger stage, 38th annual conference. On the back wall, there are hexagonal shapes of blues, whites, and silvers. Kamala Harris has entered and is hugging Steve Harvey. She is wearing a taupe gray pantsuit.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Her
Chairman
dark
Jones,
hair is
thank you
straight
so very much for that introduction and hosting us today.
and
Thank you
shoulder
very
length.
much. Shall we? Okay.
She holds the microphone in her left hand.
Well,
She wears
how
a
are you,
white
Madam
shirt
Vice
and a
President?
gold
I am
necklace.
very well, Mr. Harvey.
You've been
How
pretty
you doing?
busy.
Yeah, I'm in these streets.
They have both sat down in cream-colored soft chairs
Yeah,
with
you
small
are, really,
tables
you
next
are.
to them.
What's your schedule after this?
So I just flew in from Washington, D.C. After I'd leave here, I go back to Air Force Two to go back to D.C., and then about 4 hours later, I get back on the plane to go to Switzerland to do a few meetings there regarding what's happening in Europe, and particularly what's happening with Ukraine. And then I will do those meetings and then come right back.
Me and Marjorie going
She
to
smiles
Croatia
broadly.
Tuesday. That plane you on, can we use Air Force Two? That's the one. That's nice. Hey, listen, let's get started because this is important information. You and I have talked about this many times before on my show, and it's a lot of things you've been doing. This past fall, you had a Fight for Our Freedoms college tour.
Yeah.
And you talked to over 15,000 college students to expand upon all of the urgent issues that concerned us as a people. And you've been traveling across the country doing a lot of other things. And just recently, after addressing the epidemic of gun violence and women's rights, reproductive rights, and all of this that seem to have taken away, you've launched an economic opportunity tour. So tell us a little bit about this tour and why you launched it.
So I'll start by talking about where we are right now. So this hotel, many may know, was referred to as the Hotel of Hope. This was the only hotel that allowed Dr. King to speak. And it was here in this very ballroom that Dr. King gave one of his last speeches. I think it was the last one in his Poor People's Campaign, talking about, of course, what he was on the verge of doing, which was to merge the civil rights movement which is, of course, a movement about justice, with the movement around economic justice. And it was shortly after he was here that he was assassinated. And so the symmetry of being here as the first black vice president of the United States to talk about the importance of growing economic opportunity for the community is something that I feel very strongly about. And so I'm doing this tour. Thank you.
She's answering this question not only directly to Steve, but directly to the audience. Her legs
So
are
I'm
crossed.
doing this
She
tour
sits casually.
mostly because I believe that for those of us who do the kind of work that our administration is doing, that President Biden and I are doing, in order for it to be real, it's got to hit the streets. And the only way that that will happen in a meaningful way is if the people are aware of what is available to them and then take advantage of that. So I wanted to come and speak to 100 black men, to this organization, because I know who everyone here is. This is a room full of leaders of every age who can help get the word out about what we have made available, because it's so important people take advantage of what's available. So I'm doing this tour to, one, highlight the importance of speaking truth about the obstacles that have existed for access to capital, for home ownership, for black folks, and what we are doing to actually deal with those obstacles in a way that we create opportunity. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. So, for example, what we're doing around reduction of debt, debt forgiveness, what we are doing to address the racial wealth gap as it relates to a number of issues, including access to capital for our small businesses and entrepreneurs, what it means in terms of housing discrimination, and the work that we need to do and will continue to do to address those issues. And really, the essence of this tour is born out of a belief that people need more than just what is necessary to get by. We want to get ahead. And we know that it is important that we have reduced Black unemployment to historic lows, but that's a baseline, which is that people have a job. In our community, we also have ambition, aspirations, incredible ideas, and the division between that and actually being able to put it to use is often about access to the relationships of the capital that can take us from those good ideas to creating a business, starting a business, growing a business. So that's why I'm doing this tour.
She wears a wedding ring on her left hand and a solitary ring on her right hand.
Well,
She's taking the
let's
top
talk
off her
about
glass
this
of water and is
capital
sipping water.
for
Close up on Steve
for
Harvey.
entrepreneurs and small businesses, because that's been a really important part of your mandate here as vice president.
Yeah.
But little do a lot of people know, you were doing this long before you even got to the White House.
Mm-hmm.
You have been a huge proponent about entrepreneurship dollars and stuff that's available now, and a lot of people are not aware, and there's a lot of, like you say, really brilliant people in this audience here who are entrepreneurs. The minds in this room is really startling, man. There's some really sharp people here, right? And if they only knew what was available for them. Tell us more about this work for small business and entrepreneurs.
So like you said, Steve, when I was in the United States Senate, I actually was responsible with a group of other senators for getting $12 billion
Close up
more
on Kamala
into our
Harris.
community banks. So the importance of community banks is they are, as they are called, they're in the community, led by members of the community. They are people who understand the capacity of the community, the needs of the community, the culture of the community. They are folks who, unlike the big banks, will see the dream that an individual has for what is possible, and instead of rejecting that dream because maybe it's something they've not heard before, they will listen to it and then give folks advice, including financial literacy advice, helping people know how to run a payroll, how to deal with inventory in a way that they can start a business and sustain that business and grow that business. So the money that we are putting in community banks is intentional in that it is there that we believe there is going to be the greatest opportunity for folks in the community to actually do the work that is about entrepreneurship. Since I've been vice president, I also created what's called the Economic Opportunity Council, and I got the big banks and big tech companies to invest private equity into community banks. And we're on track to getting $3 billion more into community banks because of that partnership.
Vice President Harris holds the microphone in her left hand and generally gestures
And
with
there's
her
a
right hand as
specific
speaking.
piece of that that's very important. You know that VCs, venture capitalists, only 2% of their investments go to Black businesses.
She switched hands.
Right? We also know that Black folks are 1/3, I think the number is 3 times less likely to apply
She checked her notes.
for business loans. And a big part of that is that nobody likes to be disappointed, right? And the feeling, rightly, after so many things can disappoint, that I don't want to go for it and then be rejected. Right. So again, putting the money into community banks is about putting it into a place where people can walk in with a sense of dignity that is respected to actually be able to have access to capital. So we're doing that. The other piece that we have done is from the day that we came in office as an administration, President Biden and I made a commitment that we would increase federal government contracts by 50% to minority-owned businesses. And understand what that means. Once you get a federal contract, it's usually for 5 years, and you can renew it for 10, 20, 30 years. So, Steve, unless somebody messes that thing up, it's yours for a very long time, which is going to be a source of incredible wealth-growing opportunity for yourself, for your family, and for your community. So these are some of the things we've done around access to capital to address the disparities that have for too long existed. And I put this all in the context of another reason I'm doing this tour. Since we came in office, we passed the bipartisan infrastructure law. We are putting billions of dollars on the streets of America to upgrade sidewalks, roads, bridges, freeways. Do you know that over 90% of construction companies employ 20 or fewer people? Those are small businesses. Think about, we are putting over $1 trillion, by my calculation, on the streets of America over the next 10 years to invest in a clean energy economy, adaptation, resilience to extreme climate occurrences. Federal contracts. What we are doing with the CHIPS and Science Act, we are investing in semiconductor manufacturing here in the United States because we know, and we learned if we didn't know before during the pandemic, this supply chain thing can really mess you up. And we need domestic production and manufacturing of some of these essential needs. So in the last 3 years, our accomplishments around growing the economy of America in a broad-based economic policy means putting trillions of federal dollars into the economy, which will require for it to be meaningful, folks to take up those contracts to do the work that is about building up our nation. So that's part of why I'm here, is to ask everyone here, help me get out the word of what we are doing, and that the Small Business Administration, as an example, and we have representatives here, we have the Deputy Secretary of Commerce here, the Deputy Secretary of Treasury here, help get the word out about what is available, because too often, like I said, Black folks are 3 times less likely to apply for these things. But we got to let people know that it's there so that they will apply and take advantage of what we are doing, including we have finally gotten rid of the prohibition on people with a criminal record being able to apply for SBA loans. We just got rid of that. So now, for those who are formerly incarcerated or who have a conviction for a crime, that will no longer prohibit people from being eligible for small business loans. Help me get the word out. That's why I'm here.
She sits back in her chair, relaxes her hands, drinks
Well,
her
that's
water.
good, because you might as well be able to get a small business loan, because you can be president too with a criminal record. So that's a nice exchange. Ain't that
He has
about
made
it?
himself a little more casually comfortable in
Yeah.
his chair.
You know, look, I've been reading this paper because I got to stay to the, I got a headache trying to stay on course, so just let me go off this paper for a minute. Before y'all start calling my radio show and DMing me, talking about why you ain't asked no hard-hitting questions, that ain't what this is. I'm throwing a lob. This is an alley-oop for a dunk, because this administration needs to get the word out of what they're actually doing and what they're actually accomplishing, so we can stop all this foolishness about what you're doing for black people. Can't nobody come out with no agenda and call it this for black people and expect to get in the White House. You got to play the game different. Y'all know what this is. So now this next question is another lob for her to dunk. Because they done a lot, man. But we see, I'm on this radio show and I'm hearing all these people talking about, I'm not voting if they not doing nothing for us. Listen to me. If you do not vote, the analytics will show. They know how many women vote, they know the age you are when you vote. If we don't vote, how we gonna ask for something next time? If you ain't got no voting power, you talking about reparations. Ain't nobody finna give you no reparations and you don't vote.
He's pointing and gesturing directly to the audience.
Give us some money? No how, man. I hope they do. They owe us. I'll go down there.
He's picked his notes back up, crossed his legs.
I'm sorry.
Back to his notes, and she is amused.
Madam, I know I ain't coming back next year. I already
He scratched his bald
appreciate
head.
y'all having me. Madam Vice President, this is another part of this conversation because it affects us all. It's about housing. And another thing that you've been involved in over the years has been about housing, and it remains a priority for families all across the country. So talk more about the work that's being done to address the obstacles that's being presented in front of all of us as we try to gain housing.
So you're right, Steve. I mean, back when I was Attorney General of
Vice
California,
President Harris.
I sued the 5 biggest banks of the country during the foreclosure crisis.
She scratched her nose.
And you'll remember that a lot of black families were targeted with those promises of these loans, 0 payment down, and people ended up going bankrupt. So this is something I focused on for a long time. And here again, let's look at it through the context of obstacles and opportunities. So home ownership is probably one of the most effective and efficient and fastest ways to grow intergenerational wealth. Just think about it in this context. You own a home and then your child says, you know, Daddy, I want to go to Howard University. Yes. And you can say to your child, honey, you don't have to take out some loans to do that. I'll take some equity out of the house. Or let's say your daughter says, I want to start a small business. And you can say to your child, honey, you don't have to take out a loan. I will take some equity out of the house to give you some startup capital. Intergenerational wealth. Okay, but that's a fact. Now let's talk about other facts. Let's talk about, we don't even need to go as far back as 40 acres and a mule never happened. Let's go to the GI Bill. You know, we just celebrated D-Day. So remember, we call them the greatest generation, those mostly men who went to war and put America on the map as a leader around global peace and security. So the United States government, in essence, said, the people said, you are the greatest generation. You sacrificed so much. We owe you, and we believe in you. And there were policies then to boost their standing through loans, specific grants given to them to buy homes. So here was this incredible boost. Here's the reality. Black servicemen, because of what we know to be racial bias and racism in the system, did not receive those loans at the same rate. So where you saw public policy that was about a boost, right? We had disparities before that happened. And then you see the disparities grow even more.
She's using her gestures
Take into account segregation,
to indicate
redlining,
the raising and lowering.
urban renewal, where in so many black cities in particular, they would build freeways straight through the neighborhood, which would cut the business community, commerce off from the neighborhoods. Over and over again, we have seen these inflection points in the history of our country that have set folks back around home ownership. So one thing that we have to do is speak truth about that. And the second piece of it then is, what are we going to do to accommodate the fact that we have far too many folks who, for example, in black families, there's no history in their immediate family of home ownership. What are we doing to give them a boost? So we are proposing a policy, which we are on track to getting done, so that if you are the first generation in your family to go for home ownership, you'll get a $25,000 credit for down payment. And if you are first in your family generationally, first-time home ownership, qualify for $400 a month in credits to go toward paying your mortgage. So these are some of the issues that we are seeking to address. There's another issue. Home appraisals. Again, it's about speaking truth, right? So, and I have to give great credit to the former Secretary of HUD, Marcia Fudge, who we worked on this for a while, and so this is where it is. Home appraisals. How many people here have heard the story about a black family wants to sell their home or take out a second mortgage, needs to get the home appraised for its value? And they call in the appraiser. The appraiser comes in and appraises it for a certain number. The family knows that's too low. So then they get in touch with some friends of the family who are white and say, why don't y'all come over with your family pictures? We'll take ours down. You invite an appraiser over. The house appraises for hire. Racial bias in home appraisals is a real issue. Again, contributing to what we would see then in terms of disparities around the ability to accumulate and grow wealth. So what we have done is we are now requiring that home appraisers receive racial bias training to address, again, what are these seemingly small issues, but are very big issues when you talk about the overall ability of folks to catch up and to build the kind of wealth that we know is an entitlement, is a right of every hardworking person. So that's part of what we're doing on home ownership.
Good, good.
A two-shot of both of them. She drinks her water.
I think
Close up on
another
him.
important thing to point out from this administration is what's being done about debt. Because debt, look, I got 7 kids and all of them went to college.
Yeah.
And they were fortunate enough where they didn't have to deal with that, right?
Right.
But the average person is smothered with this debt.
That's right.
They struggling out here with this debt, these medical bills and all like this. Talk to us about what you all's plan has been, what the administration has done and wants to do pertaining to debt.
So I'll start with student loan debt. We have now, and anybody who has received student loan debt forgiveness, please testify. Everywhere, everywhere. We have forgiven over $160 billion of student loan debt for over 5 million Americans. And I have to emphasize, that was not without a whole lot of people that did not want that to happen. We had to fight to push it through. The courts ruled against us on a part of it, and so we found another way of doing it. But here's the thing about student loan debt, especially what we know for our community. You look at, for example, HBCUs, the vast majority of HBCU students are Pell Grant recipients. Folks have to take out these student loans. And what we have found, especially when I meet, many places, many times, people who are public servants, our teachers, our nurses, firefighters, God knows we don't pay them enough as it is. And so what we are doing is we are forgiving student loan debt, and for our public servants, doubling the amount of student loan debt that we are forgiving. Here's what I want to ask the leaders in the room in terms of helping get the word out. Please help people know this. You can qualify for student loan debt even if you did not graduate. Help get the word out. And again, it's about the logic, but it's about the logic behind it. It's just about the logic behind it. Here's the thing. So most people, many people leave college, drop out because they can't afford it. But the loan is still due. So we are forgiving student loan debt, including for people who did not graduate, because we understand the nature of the problem and we're trying to fix it. Medical debt. Medical debt, for the most part, comes about because of a medical emergency. It is something folks don't plan for. It's certainly not something people want. And what ends up happening is people then accumulate all these medical bills. And it sets them back. As it is, think about the nature of the person we're talking about. They're going through health issues. It probably means they're losing time from work. It probably means they're struggling in many ways because of their health issue. And this medical debt currently gets counted, has been forever, counted against their credit score. We have made it so that now medical debt cannot be counted in your credit score. That's a big issue. Because, folks know, your credit score like you know your weight. You know that number. People can, I'm sure if you say, neighbor, what's your credit score? They probably know, right? And so what we are doing is again, addressing the realities of what holds people back and weighs them down, right? When we talk about the need for people to have access to economic opportunity, we have to take into account what holds people back. Because we don't lack for hard work, work ethic, good ideas, ambition, aspiration. But there are obstacles built into the system that have to be addressed to give people the opportunity. And it's not about a handout. It's about saying, give people the opportunity to compete. Give hardworking people the opportunity to get ahead and not just get by. That's what this is about.
Wow, that's good.
This live feed we're
debt
watching.
relief.
Yeah.
Emergency medical debt relief. Real medical, not liposuction and BBLs. You got that, just you on your own with that. Don't go down there and fill out the paper and think they're going to pay for that. It's probably not going to happen. I got a, look, I can only be me. I apologize. I'm going to give myself a round of applause because I've never sat on the stage this long with a microphone and done this little bit of talking right here. But it's actually been informative to me. I got to tell you, normally I would have interrupted you by now because I would have been bored out of my mind.
No, I'm very impressed with your.
You like this?
Yes, I'm very impressed.
I look like Gayle King, don't I?
Impressed.
All I got to do is say something controversial, and I'm Gayle King up in here. Listen,
They're very amused with each other.
I'm
They're
glad
not
you
close
asked me
together,
to do this,
but
because
they
we've
are.
talked many times.
And I'm so
Eye
glad
to
you made
eye.
the time to do it, Steve. Thank you.
I was telling the audience I came from my ranch, and
Yeah.
you're very aware of this,
Yeah.
and you're going to help me now because you introduced me, one of your key people back there.
Yeah.
I'm in the life-saving business.
I know.
I'm 40 miles up the road from Camp Grace, who's in the soul-saving business. They require that you come down there and you get saved and you get filled with the Holy Ghost. And I told that dude that ain't. I'm in the life-saving business. I'm trying to get to heaven myself. I ain't a shoe-in right now. When I get to the gate, I'm gonna have to have a conversation, I'm pretty sure, about some stuff I said and did. I still gamble a little bit.
When he speaks,
But
she's
only
smiling
go to Vegas
broadly.
as a Christian, because sometimes I try to win my ties. I don't want to just pay up.
He's wearing a dark blue suit and black patent leather boots.
Before we get out of here, I wanted to say this to you, Madam Vice President. We got a room full of incredible leaders out here. I mean, I feel so honored to be here. And there's so many young, brilliant minds in this room. What advice would you leave us today moving forward?
Well, in particular to the young leaders, I'd say a couple things. One,
She's
you
fiddling
must
with her bracelet.
dream with ambition. Your ambition is a good thing. It's good to have ambition. Don't ever let anybody tell you you should not have ambition and aspirations. You must have and know that you are applauded for having the ability to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And don't ever hear it when somebody says to you, oh, nobody like you has done that before. Oh, it's not your time. Oh, you're too young. Oh, and then this is one I love. Oh, it's going to be hard work. Don't you ever listen to that. I like to say, I eat no for breakfast. I don't hear no. And don't you either. The other point I would make is this, and certainly the leaders in this room know the experience that I will now describe. But to the young leaders, I will say, you're going to, in many times in your life, find that you are in a room, be it a boardroom, a meeting room, where you're the only one that looks like you. And I want you to hold in your heart and in your mind the image of what you see right now and in this room, to know that when you are in those rooms, we are all in that room with you, expecting you will walk in that room with your chin up, your shoulders back, carrying the voice that we expect you to use in that room. And know you are always applauded for being there. Don't ever let a circumstance or situation or person make you feel alone. We are all there with you, and that's the beauty of what 100 Black Men does as an organization. And so these are the things that you must remember in life, and you must always know how celebrated you are and how special you are and how much you have to give our country. We need you. To the young leaders, I started, Steve, as you said, a college tour last fall. I'm going to tell you, I love Gen Z. I really do. Now, I'm going to say to the older adults, you know that if someone is 18 today, this is humbling. You know what year they were born? 2006. Deal with that. But think about Gen Z and our younger leaders. They've only known the climate crisis. They have actually coined a term, climate anxiety, to describe their concern about having children one day or owning a home for fear of what extreme weather might do to wipe it out. They witnessed the killing of George Floyd. They went through a pandemic and lost significant pieces of their education and socialization process. During the height of their reproductive years, the highest court in the land, the court of Thurgood, just took a constitutional right from them so that our daughters will know fewer rights than their grandmothers. And I would ask them, Steve, everywhere I'd went, and it was always a packed room with an overflow room, I'd ask the students, the young leaders, raise your hand if at any point between kindergarten and 12th grade you had to endure an active shooter drill. And almost every hand went up. It was bone-chilling. This one younger student said to me, yeah, on this subject, that's why I don't like going to fifth period. I said, why, baby? Why don't you want to go to fifth period? Because in that classroom, there's no closet to hide in. On some of the biggest issues facing our country today and up in November, when these young leaders start voting in their numbers, I see a sea change. Because they're not playing around. This is not intellectual. This is not academic for them. It's a lived experience. And so I say to the young leaders then, with that point, you were born leaders. And if you're in this room, it's because you have chosen to be a leader, and just keep leading because we need you. We need you.
She sits back in her chair after speaking directly to the audience. Steve is nodding.
Well, we've come to the end. This clock is at 0. I did what I said I was going to do. Your Secret Service, all of them got guns, and they had me in the room by themselves, and they said when that clock hits 0, you must be through, so y'all can put them safeties back on your pistols.
He's gesturing
because
to
I've
unseen
completed my
Secret Service
task.
agents.
Listen, I've been in rooms like this before. The vibe in here is incredible. I'm proud to be one of you.
She's nodding.
I love black people. I'm proud when I see black people. I'm about the uplift and edification of black people. This administration has done so many things that can affect our community. They just can't label it black. So please quit tripping. When we get up to November, we got to get to these polls. Because this other group talking about make America great again, I don't know when it was supposed to be great for us, but when you start taking black history out of schools and you start getting rid of diversity inclusion, I got a real feeling of what they think America would look great again. We have got to get to the polls, and this is the ticket we need to punch it for. It's the Harris-Biden ticket, and I think that's what we need to do. Thank y'all for having me. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris.
She's waving.
Yeah.
She's standing. They're both standing in their chairs. The feed we've been watching is a blue background with the live video toward the left side of the screen. On the right side of the screen is a small box with the sign language interpreter, who's a Caucasian male with close-cropped hair.
So everybody smile.
He's wearing a black
and we're going to
jacket.
take a selfie with Steve's phone. And just remember, on Juneteenth, however you celebrate Juneteenth in 5 days, I'm a call to action that everyone also think about how you register people to vote on Juneteenth.
They're standing center stage. They're back to the audience. They're holding a cell phone to take a selfie with the audience in the background. The audience is standing and waving. They take the selfie. Center stage, large shot from the drone footage from the top of the proscenium arch of the stage showing the audience. Vice President Harris is exiting the stage, clapping. graphic on the screen. Thank you for joining. Vice President Harris delivers remarks on our nationwide economic tour, opportunity tour, Atlanta, Georgia. A small white graphic of the White House building itself, the White House, Washington, WH.gov.
Thank you so much, visual interpreter Rebecca. And this ends our coverage of the White House Live here at Aira. We will be rebroadcasting this event. You can view it in the app. You can also view it on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/IRAIO. Thank you for joining us.